Good morning everyone, this is Mike.
And this is Pauline.
And we start off with Sight for Wight news for Friday, 17th of January 2020. Tuesday the 21st of January. Laura will be at the Our Place community drop-in session at the West Wight Community Centre in Mower Place. That's Mower Place, Freshwater. Come along to say hello between 10:15am and 12 noon and enjoy a free cup of tea or coffee. The swimming group are swimming at the waterside pool in Ryde from 8pm till 8:45pm. The pool is closed to the public whilst the group swims. There are male and female volunteers to help you get in and out of the pool, as well as lifeguards to ensure your safety. To join the swimming group, please call Sight for Wight first to notify us of your swimming ability. You need to register with the office at Millbrook House first to be able to swim with the group.
Wednesday the 22nd of January, the weekly coffee morning will be held at Millbrook House from 10am until 11:30. There will also be our low vision drop-in between 10am and 11:30. This is a weekly event to allow you to view and try the low vision equipment we have at Sight for Wight without the need for an appointment. The Sight for Wight Members Forum takes place at Millbrook House at 11:30am till 1pm. More information available in the Any Other News section.
Thursday the 23rd of January. Laura will be at the coffee morning at the Old Smithy Coffee Shop in God's Hill between 10:30am and 11:45am. Our coffee mornings are run by staff and volunteers from Sight for Wight and are open to all. Refreshments include delicious fresh cakes which are available to purchase direct from the coffee shop. The Thursday social group are meeting at Millbrook House. The group meets at 10:30am until 2pm. This week at around 11am we will be joined by the Maritime Archaeology Trust, who will give us a presentation especially for the visually impaired. There will be a short talk to give an overview of the war at sea during the First World War, with an audio presentation of some letters, and then there will be some artefacts to be looked at and handled. Most Thursdays, with the help of volunteers, the group enjoys a number of activities: crosswords, catching up on news and trivia, knitting and crochet. They are currently making pom-poms for the rug. This very friendly mixed group also love to chat and enjoy lunch together. Later in the afternoon, volunteers come in and read to the group on different topics. If you would like to join the group, then please contact the charity on 522 205.
And in any other news, Sight for Wight takes pleasure in inviting members to the Sight for Wight Members Forum on Wednesday, January the 22nd at Millbrook House from 11:30am until 1pm. RSVP and advance questions by Tuesday the 21st of January, please. For further information, please email inquiries at iwsb.org.uk or telephone 52205.
Touch Tours. Joe Bresloff is a freelance artist educator who is very passionate about making arts and heritage venues accessible for everyone. She organises touch tours which are friendly and informal opportunities for visually impaired people to have a hands-on experience, whenever possible, of some of the arts and heritage exhibitions and collections in both Southampton and Portsmouth. There will be touch tours at God's House Tower Arts and Heritage Venue on Thursday the 6th of February 2020 from 10:30am until 12:30pm, and at Southampton City Art Gallery on Friday the 28th of February 2020 from 10:30 a.m. until 12:30 p.m. These events are both free, but both places do need to be booked. To book a place, call Joe Bresloff on 0744 322 4341. Our trustee, Ruth Hollingshead, will be attending the Touch Tour on the 6th of February with her guide dog Flora, and is happy to arrange to meet at the Red Jet terminal in Cowes and walk to the venue, provided you can bring your own sighted guide or are independently mobile. To contact Ruth, please leave your details with Laura on 522205. Please be aware that Sight for Wight is not organising this event, and therefore no sighted guide support will be provided.
Macular Society meeting in Southampton. The Macular Society holds a meeting for working age people who are living with a macular condition in the local area, and our nearest one is in Southampton. The group meets at the Standing Order pub in Southampton, and the next get-together is on Saturday the 15th of February from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Our trustee, Ruth, will be travelling over with her guide dog via the Red Jet and walking up to the venue, which is about a 10 minutes walk. If anyone would like to join her, then please leave your details with Laura on 522205, and she will then get in touch to arrange a time to meet at the Red Jet terminal in Cowes. Please be aware that Sight for Wight is not organising this event, and therefore no sighted guide support will be provided.
Pre-owned equipment for sale. We have been asked to advertise on behalf of a member of Pre-Loved Braille Pen 12 Touch. This is a Bluetooth Braille keyboard with Braille display designed for use by individuals who are blind to have low vision. This keyboard connects to a phone, netbook, PC or tablet. It allows the user to navigate an external device with a joystick, write SMS, browse the internet, complete 6-key entry into a Braille translator, or simply type. The user can also switch between 6-dot and 8-dot Braille entries. The asking price is £100. If you are interested in purchasing this item or require more information, please call 01983 522205 and ask for Laura.
Freshwater Library Listening Reading Group. This group will be meeting on Tuesday, the 28th of January, from 11 a.m. to 12 noon. Please pass this information on to anyone who is interested. If you would like more information, please call on 752377 or email anna.britton@isleofwight.gov.uk.
RNIB Living with Sight Loss course. Have you or a family member been diagnosed with sight loss? Share experiences with others in similar situations and find out about services available to you. These free, informal, community-based courses provide information, advice, support and practical solutions for people with sight loss and those close to them, helping them to adjust to a sight loss condition, increase independence and boost confidence. This course will be running on Thursday the 13th of February and Thursday the 20th of February, 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. at Falk and Cross Hall, Shanklin, PO 37 7LA. To book your place, please call the RNIB on 0300 123 3933 or email at iwslenquiries@rnib.org.uk More information can be found at www.rnib.org.uk/living with sight loss.
We will be visiting the Isle of Wight Pearl on Monday the 10th of February. On this visit we will join the Pearl Masterclass, a free informative talk about pearls. The talk lasts about 30 minutes and there will also be an opportunity to look around the centre or have refreshments in the cafe. There is no charge for the talk, but the minibus may be available depending on location for a donation of £2. Closing date for application is Monday, January the 20th. For further information or to book your place, please contact the charity on 522205 or email members@iwsb.org.uk. Please note that all activities are subject to demand and availability of volunteers for driving and supporting as a sighted escort guide.
Donations. If you have any unwanted gifts, Sight for Wight will be pleased to receive anything in new condition and suitable for raffle or tombola prizes.
This week's In Touch. Help on your doorstep. Peter Wight looks at smaller blind charities. What role do they play? How are they funded? Do enough people actually know they exist? We hear from Visionary, an umbrella organisation which represents more than 100 of these charities. The chief executives of Sight Concern Worcestershire and Sight Service Gateshead tell us about the challenges they face. And we hear from the people who use the services on offer. The producer is Mike Young.
This is Mike.
And good morning, this is Pauline.
And today we're reading the County Press, Friday the 17th of January 2020. Here are the headlines. He just couldn't do it. Prison worker suicide. He just couldn't cope. Struggling prison worker Matt killed himself at Parkhurst site. He had only just got engaged and had so much to look forward to. But Matthew Law was unable to cope with the difficulties of working at the prison and struggled with his mental health. His body was discovered at the Parkhurst site at HMP IW after the 29-year-old took his own life while at work. Matt, a former prison officer who had recently scaled his work down to operational support grade level to seek less pressure in his job, but his mental health remained fragile. He hanged himself at the prison on December the 16th. He was newly engaged to his girlfriend, Jules Buckland, with whom he lived at Camp Hill. She paid tribute to him this week. She said, Matt had worked for several years as a prison officer following in the footsteps of his father. The prison environment sadly had a negative impact on Matt's mental health, exacerbating underlying pain. Matt leaves his parents, Michelle and Tony Law of Seaview, along with many extended members of family in the UK and Australia. He also leaves behind his 7-year-old son from a previous relationship, with whom he enjoyed playing Pokemon and Nerf wars. Jules said, We were newly engaged and planning our wedding in the Lake District, somewhere we had both spent our childhoods and shared together in our anniversary trip just weeks before he died. Matt was known in the local car scene for his badly painted noisy bangers, although he had lost contact with the scene towards the end. He was most known for his passion for weight training and the gym life, and was starting his new journey as a personal trainer at the point he sadly relapsed in his mental health and took his life. He fought hard to be part of this world, but prison staff are living in the forgotten service, and it is a dark world to be part of. Character-wise, he was very caring and kind. even among his darkest days. He had his vices, but he laughed and loved and wanted so much more for the people he cared for. An inquest was opened into his death on December the 23rd and was adjourned until March. The cause of death was hanging. At the time of his death, Phil Coppell, Director General of Prisons at the Ministry of Justice, said, "We are providing extra support to staff at HMP-IW following the death of a colleague. My thoughts are with their family and friends at this incredibly difficult time."
Teen dies in crash. A teenager from Carisbrooke has died in a car crash in Arreton. Michaela Logan, aged 19, was driving a black Ford Fiesta when she crashed at Hale Common last Friday night. It was a single vehicle collision, and an appeal for witnesses has been launched. A police spokesperson said, "Despite best efforts, a 19-year-old woman from Carisbrooke was sadly pronounced dead at the scene. Officers investigating are now keen to speak with anyone who witnessed the collision or anyone who may have seen the black Fiesta in the area in the time leading up to 11:35 p.m. Maybe you have a dash cam in your car and captured footage of the vehicle prior to the collision. Anyone with information can call 101, quoting the reference number 442000126114. Following the crash, the main road was closed for several hours overnight and into Saturday morning from Brandstone Cross to Down End. Shanklin firefighters helped police and ambulance crews with lighting and fuel clearance.
Support for Tour of Britain plans. Plans to hold the finale of the Tour of Britain cycling race on the Isle of Wight have moved a step closer after they were backed by council bosses. The Isle of Wight Council Cabinet has agreed to pursue negotiations with organisers with a view to securing sponsorship and funding. The international event is due to be broadcast live on ITV4 and Eurosport in September 2021, showcasing the island to a global audience and providing a huge boost to the economy. Councillor Wayne Whittle, Cabinet Member for Regeneration and Business Development, said it was a unique opportunity that could attract 150,000 spectators and benefit the economy by £4 million. The Tour of Britain attracts some of the world's top cyclists, including Olympic champions and Tour de France winners. The cost of hosting the event could be around £340,000, including a £250,000 payment to host the finale and £90,000 for associated costs, such as traffic management, which would come from the authorities' already stretched 2020/21 and 2021/22 budgets. The council said it hoped to replenish its coffers through sponsorship and partnership with third parties. Councillor Whittle said he would not let the opportunity slip through his fingers and revealed he was also in talks to host other major events on the island. He said, "We are going to grab this. To host the last leg of the Tour of Britain is a huge thing. It all ends here. The prize giving will be here. So it's almost 14 hours of live television coverage, and the island is very photogenic." Council leader Councillor Dave Stewart said, "We all look at the challenges for local councils and communities, but this is what the island is good at. We are good at providing a great inspirational place, and this is getting recognised. What we do need is for our community to come forward and sponsor what we're doing, but we also need people to host these people and help them have a fantastic experience so they come again. The council, will now pursue talks with organiser Sweet Spot to enter into a contract.
Man split partner's head open. A businessman banged his girlfriend's head repeatedly against a wall, causing her head to split open before she fled the house in her pyjamas, the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court heard. Kevin Rann, 51, of Sandford, Godshill, admitted assault by beating. Anne Smout, prosecuting, said he pushed his partner into a wall, cutting her head open. He followed her around the house, banging her head repeatedly against the wall. She tried to get into a car, but he took the keys, so she ran into Godshill, wearing her pyjamas, and was taken by a passing van driver to a friend's house. She had to have her head injury glued together. Olivia Hagger, for Rann, said the couple were no longer together following a 5-year relationship, and Rann had no previous record of violence. She said, "It was a completely isolated incident, totally out of character." She said Rann owned his own groundworks business, which employed 13 people. Judge Anthony Calloway sentenced Rann to 12 months community order to include 100 hours of unpaid work. He was also given a 5-year restraining order banning him from contacting his former partner. He was ordered to pay his victim £500 and £85 in court costs.
Ireland battered by Storm Brendan. Storm Brendan hit the island with full force this week, leaving homes without power and scattering trees across roads. At 11 p.m. on Tuesday night, the bruising southerly wind reached 82 miles per hour. Earlier in the day, hurricane force 12 winds were recorded at the Needles. Homes and businesses in more than 150 West Wight postcodes lost power for several hours throughout the night, as did homes in the Godshill area. Scottish and Southern electricity networks had several outages across their region. Trees were brought down in Porchfield and at the Middle Road, blocking traffic until contractors cleared the debris. In Ventnor, Blake's longshoremen worked through the night to protect their beach hut, despite being prepared by boarding it up. They said, "We've been down here most of the night, although preparations were made to protect our business from tonight's weather. It was pretty well forecasted, spot on with a slow-moving cold front that had a strong southerly wind at a steady 30, gusting 50 knots for 12 hours or more, leading up to high water at around 2:20 a.m. this morning. This is the worst kind of wind direction that drives the sea onshore and straight up the beach over the road. Red Funnel, White Link and Hover Travel all cancelled services on Monday and Tuesday due to high winds in the Solent. The Met Office weather warnings for heavy rain and wind were in place, plus an Environmental Agency flood alert for the coast, specifically Cowes, East Cowes and Newport Quay.
School closure plans confirmed. Following months of discussions, consultations and protests, a decision has finally been made on the future of 2 West Wight schools. All Saints Primary School, Freshwater, will close this summer. Then Yarmouth Primary School will be closed and relocated to the All Saints site. The Isle of Wight Council said in February that 1 of the 5 primary schools in the area would close due to falling pupil numbers. There are currently 30 surplus places across the schools: All Saints, Yarmouth, Shalfleet, St Saviour's and Bryston. This is expected to grow to 56 places next year, leaving reception classrooms half empty. The Council Cabinet last week voted to close All Saints, while the decision to close and relocate Yarmouth was made by the governing body. As a voluntary aided primary school, the council did not have the power to close Yarmouth itself. Reading a prepared statement outside the school on Tuesday, Chair of Governors Carla Bradshaw said, "We believe securing the future of our high-quality staff team will enable them to deliver excellent, stable education for all pupils now and in the future in this new location. It is closer to where most of our children live, and because our decision is conditional upon the investment in a new building being confirmed, we are confident future pupils will be taught in a school that is fully fit for purpose for learning in the 21st century. 2 implementation groups will be formed to work with each school and set of governors to ensure standards are maintained and the transition of pupils is as seamless as possible. The council is due to receive a £5.5 million government grant to refurbish the All Saints site, the biggest investment in education the West Wight has seen.
Thieving postie stole from birthday cards. A postman stole hundreds of pounds from letters and greeting cards and was eventually caught after Royal Mail set up a trap using marked money. Timothy Hayes, aged 38, of Langard Road in Shanklin, was prosecuted by Royal Mail and admitted 3 counts of stealing from mailbags between August and November 2018. The charges amounted to 203 packages containing money, totalling £620. He appeared at the Isle of Wight Crown Court for sentencing last Thursday. Prosecutor Wesley Potterton said Hayes had worked for Royal Mail for almost 9 years. Suspicions were raised at the Southampton Mail Centre when they noticed 150 packages had been opened while Hayes was on duty. During a period when he was on light duties, no packages came through opened, but the offences started recurring when Hayes was back on postal collection duties again. Royal Mail hid money in some packages and marked them so they could be tracked, and Hayes was found with the items in his possession. Mr. Potterton said, firstly, he denied it, but when he was told about the marked money and that it had been tracked, he admitted he had been stealing. This theft relates to a number of people as hundreds of letters were received, opened and money removed. Jonathan Underhill for Hayes said he was of previous good character, but his financial situation snowballed. He got into significant debt and his mother was ill health. Mr. Underhill said Hayes was deeply remorseful, ashamed and sickened by his actions and was not at risk of reoffending. He resigned from Royal Mail and had found work since as a Tesco delivery driver. Mr. Underhill said the supermarket was aware of the conviction. Hayes agreed to use his Royal Mail pension fund to pay Royal Mail costs. Recorder Anna Midgley sentenced Hayes to 10 months in prison, suspended for 18 months. He was ordered to complete 80 hours of unpaid work and attend a 15 rehabilitation days course. He was also ordered to pay £140 surcharge.
Judicial review is still possible. Yarmouth school campaigners are still considering legal action in a bid to save their school, but the decision to relocate it has been welcomed by the All Saints head teacher. Yarmouth Mayor, Councillor Steve Cowley, speaking on behalf of Keep Yarmouth School in Yarmouth campaign group, which has threatened to call for a judicial review, said members were obviously disappointed with the decision. Parent Iuin Jehu said the decision to close and relocate the school was hugely upsetting for his family. He said, I've always opposed this proposal because of the impact it will have on my son and all the children in the West Wight. It causes me to question if I can ever again trust the governors to do what is best for my son and the other children in their care. Carly Wyanock, a parent at All Saints, said she was pleased the school would remain in Freshwater. She said, "It's a really good compromise. The Yarmouth governors have shown they recognise all children and all the positive attributes of having their school in Freshwater. The decisions have been made. There is no point trying to fight this. Let's start working together and give our children the best opportunity with an outstanding school." Isle of Wight Council Cabinet Member for Children's Services, Councillor Paul Brading, said, "The key focus must now be on supporting all those impacted by the two decisions recently taken." All Saints head teacher Nikki Mobley welcomed the decision and said it was an exciting time for Freshwater, which would benefit from a school building fit for the 21st century.
Fake goods are sold on Facebook. Fake branded makeup containing traces of lead was among a haul of more than 1,000 counterfeit items seized by Isle of Wight Council Trading Standards Officer in a sting. Rip-offs of major clothing labels such as Nike and Superdry and makeup advertised as Chanel, Kylie and MAC were recovered from a property in East Cowes following a raid in February 2018. Last week, Stephen Mather and Michelle Aldridge appeared at the Isle of Wight court after admitting their role in the counterfeit operation. Mather, aged 34, who admitted 2 counts of unauthorised use of a trademark and a further offence of distributing cosmetic containing a prohibited substance, was sentenced to 8 months in prison, suspended for 24 months. Aldridge, aged 47, was given a 12-month community order after admitting 2 counts of aiding and abetting Mather. The court heard Trading Standards launched an investigation after receiving complaints fake designer fashion was being sold through Facebook. Investigators raided a property at Beatrice Avenue and found more than 1,000 fake goods in a bedroom and in the loft. They included fake Ted Baker and Adidas clothes, makeup and other branded products including Yankee candles. Samples of the makeup were sent for analysis and some were found to contain traces of lead. Mather said he obtained the goods from a man in the Manchester area and sold them under a Facebook profile in the name of Michelle Aldridge to appear more trustworthy to female customers. In mitigation, he said he made very little profit and felt others had taken advantage of him. Recorder Anna Midgley also ordered him to carry out 100 hours of unpaid community work and pay costs of £400. Speaking after the case, Councillor Gary Pearce, the Council's Cabinet Member for Community Safety, said, "Counterfeit goods need to be taken off the streets as these products do not go through the correct safety checks that legitimate products do. In this case, some of the makeup samples contained lead, which is particularly concerning as we believe these cosmetics would have been appealing to teenagers."
Jail term for dangerous driver. A dangerous driver has been jailed for 15 months after crashing into parked cars, leaving debris scattered across the road. Jamie Mobley, 39, of no fixed address, was sentenced last Friday at the Isle of Wight Crown Court after he previously admitted criminal damage, aggravated vehicle taking, dangerous driving and driving without insurance. He was remanded in custody following the crash shortly before midnight on November the 22nd and spent Christmas behind bars. Mobley was driving a Volkswagen Golf when he collided with two parked cars at Newport Road, Ventnor. The court heard he had a long criminal record. He was also banned from driving for 2 years and ordered to pay a victim surcharge of £149.
Turmoil at Town Council. A motion of no confidence in the Ryde Mayor and Deputy Mayor has been tabled by town councillors who have slammed a lack of transparency and respect shown to colleagues. 7 councillors have signed a letter sent last Friday to the Mayor, Councillor Michael Lilly, calling for an extraordinary general meeting to be held. They said they had no confidence in 5 colleagues: Councillor Lilly, Deputy Mayor Adrian Axford, Phil Jordan, Nancy Farrell and Diana Conyers. The move comes after 2 clerks left the council. One of the signatories, Councillor Tim Wakely, said the councillors who agreed terms with the clerks did so without the proper authority. He also raised concerns that without qualified clerks the town council lacked the power of competence to make decisions. He said, "There has been a lot of tension in the council. Due to the unhappiness, we are seeking the meeting to pursue a motion of no confidence where we can express our views about the processes that have been employed and explore the consequences. At an informal meeting, the panel could not identify the powers they used in our standing orders. In other words, we feel they have acted outside of their powers." Another signatory, Councillor Henry Adams, accused members of covering up the issue and said they needed to be more transparent. He said it has all come as a bit of a shock. We are hoping to know what has been going on. Councillor Sue Lyons said, "We need answers. Were there staff grievances? Were there allegations of bullying? Why was a non-disclosure agreement signed?" Councillor Lyons also said she understood the council had spent £1,400 on legal and HR advice. Councillor Lilly has pledged to defend himself. He said, "Anyone can take this action and I have to stand up and put my case forward." The letter called for Councillor Lilly to convene the meeting within 7 days or the signatories will schedule it themselves. The other signatories were Councillors Julian Critchley, John Moody, Ian Stevens and Karen Lucioni.
Food safety inspection at hospital. Inspectors have returned to St Mary's Hospital after its catering department received a shock 1-star food hygiene rating. The Food Standards Agency said major improvement was necessary following October's inspection, which found mould growth on the chiller walls, an accumulation of dust and grease in the extractor hood, and foods labelled without use-by dates and incorrect allergy information. Now, following another inspection last month, the catering department has taken action to improve standards and raise its rating to 4 stars out of 5. Measures have included a full deep clean, repairing and replacing equipment, staff training and the introduction of a new management team. Inspectors found significant progress had been made to address shortcomings and introduce new procedures to minimise the risks of working with food. However, issues around cross-contamination and labelling have yet to be fully addressed. Sausage rolls were served without an allergen label. The catering department has been told to review procedures to ensure allergen information is accurate, consistent and verifiable. Maggie Oldham, Chief Executive at the Isle of Wight NHS Trust, said, "I am really proud of how our catering team has pulled together and turned things around on behalf of our patients, our staff and the island community. They do a hugely important job, working really hard behind the scenes, and I would like to thank them for everything they do. It is great news that the catering service has reclaimed its 4-star rating, and I know how keen we all are to keep on improving and to get 5 stars next time.
Council tax to rise again. The Isle of Wight Council has yet to finalise its budget ahead of next month's crunch meeting, but has confirmed council tax is set to rise by 4%. Finance Cabinet member Councillor Stuart Hutchinson blamed government delays following the postponement of the Fair Funding Review, which will allocate funding to local councils, and changes to the business rate retention scheme. The council needs to save £4.5 million in the 2020-21 financial year, something he said was a really serious concern. It has also forecast a budget overspend of £700,000 at the end of the 2019-20 financial year. A black hole, Councillor Hutchinson said, would be plugged using the council's reserves. He told the Corporate Scrutiny Committee, "In previous years we have aimed to come in slightly under budget. I am pleased to say that because we are rigorously controlling our overspend, we have been able to pull it down from £1 million. I do not have to tell you it gets more and more difficult each year." He said a recommendation would be put to the Cabinet to increase council tax by the maximum 4% permitted by the government, 2% of which will be allocated solely towards adult social care costs. Committee member Councillor Jeff Brodie said, "This will be the 10th appalling budget round I have sat through. We are getting to around about £90 million taken out of local government on the Isle of Wight in the past 10 years, and with this clown in Downing Street, it is getting worse and worse."
East Cowes man missing in Spain. A young East Cowes man has been reported missing in Spain after he failed to turn up at his granddad's home. Harry Stagg, aged 23, was due to spend Christmas and New Year's Eve at his granddad's house in Malaga, but he never made it. As reported by the Olive Press, an English paper in Spain, his family have now issued an appeal to find him. Harry set off without a mobile phone and is believed to have travelled through France until he met a friend, Kim Muka. They travelled together but became separated once they crossed the border into Spain and were unable to contact one another. On November the 29th, Harry phoned home to the Isle of Wight from a police station in Huzeca. There was no answer, so he called Kim and arranged to meet him. Harry is described as pale, 6'2" tall, with dark brown hair and a shaggy cut, and dark brown/green eyes. His aunt, Paula Morris, aged 49, told the Olive Press it was the first or second time Harry had left the Isle of Wight alone. The British expat has lived for 11 years in the Allura town of Malaga, where she was due to meet her nephew. She said, "He was travelling. He was just doing what kids do. He likes computers and things. He's not really adventurous, but he's very polite and well-spoken." Since Harry has gone missing, his family have received a new bank card in the post. His mum has contacted Ireland Police, who directed her to the British Embassy and advised she file a missing persons report in Spain.
Liz Earle, sacked pregnant woman. A mother sacked by Ireland beauty company Liz Earle when she was 8 months pregnant has been awarded more than £17,000 by an employment tribunal. Helen Larkin, aged 38, was given 2 weeks' notice of her redundancy in June 2018. She said the company then rejected her applications for 2 other roles because of her impending maternity. Ms Larkin, who worked for a Ryde-based company for 5 years when her job was terminated, she said she was not interviewed for 2 new digital marketing roles, even though they were similar to the job she had been doing. Ms Larkin of Southsea, who represented herself at the Southampton hearing, told the BBC's Victoria Derbyshire programme she had brought the case to empower women to speak up. The Liz Earle Beauty Company is now owned by the US-based Walgreens Boots Alliance. The company told the tribunal the redundancy was not discrimination, but part of a restructuring programme in which 3 other roles were terminated. It admitted it fell short of our standards in the case of Ms Larkin.
Award for Michael's Highland cattle herd. An Island livestock expert who sold one of his bulls to the Queen for her herd at Balmoral has won a national award for his Highland cattle. Michael Polan won the award for Best Large Herd at the Highland Cattle Society's National Fold competition. He said it's such a tremendous compliment to have won the award. It means more to us than any other we have previously achieved. In the past, we've sold a bull to the Queen for her herd at Balmoral, which we were very satisfied with, as we know it is an excellent fold. This award reflects the fold's overall high quality, and this is what we aim for. It is a great credit to the team who work with me. One of the judges, Matt Old, said, "I was very impressed with the high standard of the 12 folds I visited. It was the stature, uniformity and femininity of the Erne and Mottiston folds that caught my eye and earned them the top prize in their sections."
And on that note, we say goodbye to you all. So it's bye-bye from Mike.
And bye-bye from Pauline.
Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Hello, this is the second part of the County Press, and this morning the readers are
Alison
and Megan. Now we start with the letters. And this is from David Blackford from Seaview, and he entitles it, "No Hope for Planet Earth if Population is Not Controlled." I totally agree with Graham Lascelles, County Press letters on the 10th of January, that there are too many people on our planet. Control of the climate will never be achieved while we keep breeding at the present rate. Consider this. The human population of our planet has increased from around 500 million just 1,000 years ago to a rapidly approaching 6 billion at the present time, with each person requiring food, housing and the modern gadgets of life all adding to global warming. In Great Britain, our own population has increased from about 2 million to rapidly approaching 60 million during that same 1,000 years. The saying, "burying heads in the sand," comes to mind, while the effects of this human population increase on the climate seems to be ignored at all the climate change conferences. "We are all doomed," as Private Fraser would say.
This letter is from S. Day from Sandown and is entitled "Long Wait, Dave." So, deluded Dave, Council Leader Dave Stewart's column, County Press, 10th of January 2020, has reminded Boris Johnson of his island deal pledge. I'm sure the only island Boris is interested in is in the Caribbean. With Bob Seeley returned with a huge majority, the Isle of Wight must be one of the most secure Conservative seats in the country. Why would the government invest here? Far better to plough money and resources into marginal seats. I wish Dave and Bob well, but I fear the island will not feature on any Conservative Party funding list, despite any promises.
And a letter from Louise Burns from Lake, entitled "My Mother Was Lucky She Had Family Around Her." I read with interest in December and January the County Press articles relating to patients being discharged without GPs being made aware their patients had even been in hospital. why they were in hospital and what the outcome was. In the January article, the Isle of Wight NHS Trust Medical Director Alistair Flowerdew said he hoped 90% of patients will have a discharge summary within 3 working days. In my recent experience, this has not happened and could have caused my mother to become seriously ill or even die. On December the 30th, 2019, my mother had an appointment for a CT scan. They found that she had a slight bleed on the brain, and we were asked to go to A&E where a doctor would come and talk to us. The doctor advised us that they were waiting for Southampton to get back to them, as the results had been sent there. Eventually, at around midnight, after some words with the doctors, my mother was put into a bed and in a side ward. She is 86 and a diabetic. The next day, in the late afternoon, she was admitted to the MAU unit for further monitoring following an MRI scan. On January the 1st at 1 p.m, we were advised that she was being discharged. No mention of further monitoring or doctor's visits, just that she had to come off a blood-thinning tablet she was on. At 5 p.m, we were given a letter which basically stated that due to a bleed in the right front lobule, no blood thinners to be taken for 6 weeks. I took the letter given to me into my mother's GP the following day and requested a call back to find out what happens next. This was the first the GP had heard about the matter. Sadly, the GP informed me that the first she knew about this was when she read the letter I had handed into our surgery. The consequences of this could have been highly dangerous. My mother is one of the lucky ones, as I was there to deal with the medication. What happens to the patients who have no family or friends to do this? How many people have to die before something is done? I have spent the bulk of my working career in computers. It would be so easy to adjust the hospital systems that as soon as they access anyone's health records, it sends a message to their GP surgery to advise that their records have been updated.
This letter is from Jeremy Gully, Chair of Bembridge Harbour Trust, entitled Dangers of Harbour Blockage. Dredging is promised to start again in Bembridge Harbour on April the 1st. If this happens, it will be good news, as many areas have not been dredged for a number of years and urgently need it simply to allow boats to continue to use the harbour. But will it be sufficient to halt, let alone reverse, the harbour's rapid siltation? If it continues at its current rate, in as little as 15 years we could see a sandbank showing in the middle of the harbour, even at high tide, right where boats currently sail. That's the conclusion of analysis of the latest LiDAR survey data, a sophisticated kind of aerial survey, shown to members of the Trust at its AGM last month. The equivalent of 4 10-ton truckloads of sand from the sea and silt from the river settle in the harbour daily. Yet, over the last 7 years, only an average of half a truckload a day has been dredged from inside the harbour. A 2009 public report by the Environment Agency and the Isle of Wight Council had already warned about this trend, similarly based on survey evidence. However, the latest LiDAR data reveals the quantities and distribution of material entering the harbour over a 20-year period. Now we can differentiate between silt and sand, allowing us to have some idea of how much of the build-up is coming from the river and how much from the sea. The worrying conclusion is that the rate at which the harbour is filling up has accelerated. With a much clearer picture of the problem, we can start to talk with confidence about causes and, most importantly, possible solutions. Bembridge Harbour Trust has already made numerous positive suggestions, actively supported and raised money for the Groin project, and could even help to raise financial help for other projects if needed. A short video of my presentation, Siltation in Bembridge Harbour, and the full siltation report are also available on the Bembridge Harbour Trust website, www.bembridgeharbourtrust.org.
And now we come on to Wight Memories. Isle of Wight's history, tomorrow's mystery, 50 years of change. The island has changed a lot since the 70s, but whether all those changes have been good ones is a matter of opinion. Some changes were due to the infinite wisdom of our illustrious leaders in County Hall, while others were due to Mother Nature. In the latter category is the thimble at Brook Bay. Over a century old, it collapsed in February 2014 during the heavy storms. It was allegedly built as a forward gun site for the artillery crews of Fort Redoubt at Freshwater Bay, whose practice shells sometimes fell on Chale Bay and at St Catherine's Point. Firing to the seaward side of the obelisk brought the practice to an end. The Crown Estate, modern-day owners of the thimble, say that they have no plans to rebuild it. The ferryboat service between St Helens Dover and Bembridge was a part of the island life well into the 1980s. On the sand dunes a few yards from the St Helens end was the ferryboat inn. While the kids paddled and built sandcastles, Mum and Dad could keep watch and have a pint at the same time. The precise place where Harry Matthews stood to photograph the C Street warehouses in 1971 is now lost under Medina Way, where it meets with Coppins Bridge roundabout. The river that once wound its way through the town with its pretty grass banks either side was diverted here and now makes its way through Newport, hidden from view in the attractive concrete riverbanks. The cherubs' heads at 41 South Street were prized off the wall shortly after this photograph was taken in 1974 and were never seen again. Where are they today? The final photo is a once-in-a-lifetime view of St Thomas Square from South Street, a site available for just a few weeks in 1979 during demolition work in South Street and Pyle Street.
Current affairs. How electricity came to the Isle of Wight. It was good to see many Christmas lights last month, but how many of them were energy efficient? Over the last 20 years, solar power has greatly improved, so that Trinity House lighthouses can now operate efficiently using LED arrays and batteries. In 1892, St Catherine's Lighthouse was the first place on the island to be illuminated by the newfangled electricity. The original oil lamp became redundant when a dynamo system was installed, creating electricity. The same year, electric lighting was installed in the Bath Road area of Cowes, but it was not successful. The next innovation on the island was a generation station for Ventnor in 1899. The building still exists, converted to accommodation. The system became popular and extra cables were laid out to St Lawrence and Bonchurch. Electric light at the flick of a switch had arrived for just a few people. Newport Power Station opened in 1901. Just part of the decorative brickwork remains. It was built next to the railway for ease of delivery of the coal to power the Edmondson generators. Electric cables were laid under the main roads. Cowes asked to be supplied, so a 2,500-volt direct current cable circuit was laid alongside the railway track north from Newport. A cable led under the Medina to East Cowes and up to Osborne. This massive voltage had to be reduced in rotary converters down to 240 volts to supply houses, so substations were built, several of which still exist today. The 2,500-volt cable was one of the highest in commission over the whole of Britain, but eventually alternating current was introduced as being more efficient. Other towns followed with their own plants, Sandown and Ryde in 1902. Industrial use increased during the First World War, not only for lighting but also for tools. Domestic use increased to an extent that by 1924 the island demand exceeded supply if any of the generators was out of action. So, in 1928, one central power station was built to supply the whole island with electricity. This was at East Cowes, beside the Medina, where coal could be supplied directly by ship. Cables led to all parts of the island, generally in verges, but overhead in rural areas. Increasing industrial demand in 1943 led to the first power lines under the Solent from the mainland. By 1949, there were 25,000 electricity customers on the island, an increase of 9,000 since 1939. In 1982, the new gas turbine power station was commissioned at Kingston and is still in use today.
And now for the music lovers amongst you. We have at the Key Arts has a new concert on the horizon featuring a popular returning harpist. On Friday, January the 24th, the venue is hosting the Outside Track, a 5-piece band hailing from Scotland, Ireland and Cape Breton. Among its members is Scottish harpist Ailey Robertson, who gave a solo performance at last year's Harp on Wight festival. A synthesis of virtuosity and energy, the Outside Track's marriage of Canadian, Scottish and Irish music and song has been well received around the world. The band's 5 members are united by a love of traditional music and through fiddle, accordion, harp, guitar, flute, step dance and vocals. And this concert on Friday, January the 24th at the Key Arts starts at 8 p.m.
At Shanklin Theatre in February, details are as follows. On Saturday the 1st, Michael Portillo, entitled Life, A Game of Two Halves, and that's at 7:30. On the 7th, Jimmy Carr, Terribly Funny, at 7 o'clock and 9:30. Saturday the 15th, Count Arthur Strong, Is There Anybody Out There, at 8 p.m. On Sunday the 16th, Spotlight, Isle of Wight Limited, present All You Need Is Love, at 6:30. On Thursday the 20th, Friday the 21st and Saturday the 22nd is Revenge by Robin Horden. And on the Saturday there's a matinee performance at 2:30. On Friday the 28th of February, The Furies at 7:30.
And there are 2 plays in one thanks to Coppersmith. The dramatists have taken a break from music to revive 2 of their plays for January at Bar 74 in Ryde. The first play, Angels in the River, will be performed in the lounge area, and then the audience will move to the stage area for Whatever Happened to Tom O'Bedlam. Glenn Coppany, who wrote both plays and performs as Tom O'Bedlam, said, "We put these plays on at Ventnor Fringe some time ago, and when we saw the versatile space at Bar 74, it looked perfect for another outing. Bar 74 is very warm and welcoming, and we are hoping to do more theatre at this venue. Angels in the River considers the isolation of Frances, who has created 2 mischievous companions from her imagination, Helen and Sarah. But Helen and Sarah like living with Frances. They look after her, and they do not want to leave because it's dark in the river. Using archetypal symbolism and mythology, the interplay of these characters shifts an unsettling world of shifting loyalties, innocence and dependence, an abstract world of light and shadow, a feeling of floating and sinking in an unpredictable stream. Michelle Coppeny plays Frances, while Sarah and Helen are played by Linda O'Connor and Chris Rickards. In Whatever Happened to Tom of Bedlam, the audience joins Tom of Bedlam and Mad Maudlin, two itinerant entertainers from the 17th century. Attitudes towards lunatics and beggars is becoming far less tolerant, so what will happen to their strange but colourful world of innocence, madness and ranting? Linda O'Connor plays Maud, and Glenn's sons Christopher and Jay play the narrator and sprite. The performances are on Friday, January the 24th at 7:30 p.m. and Sunday, January the 26th at 3 p.m. Tickets can be purchased at Bar 74 or Splash in Union Street Ride or on Eventbrite.
Young actors take on creepy Addams Family. Be prepared. The spooky characters from the Addams Family are coming to Ventnor. Actors from South Wight Youth Theatre are taking on the popular classic, believed to be the first time the musical comedy has been performed on a big stage by an island theatre group. The production will be shown at Ventnor Winter Gardens on Friday, January the 24th and Saturday, January the 25th at 7:30 p.m. and on Sunday, January the 26th at 2:30 p.m. The cast includes Will Foreman as Fester, Michael Grist as Gomez, Francesca Toyne as Morticia, Simon Apsey as Pugsley, Willow Samuel as Wednesday, and Innes Daly as Grandma. The popular story tells of the family busy preparing for a visit from their even creepier relatives. But trouble arises when a shady character realises the Addams' eerie hilltop mansion is standing in the way of her dream to sell all the houses in the neighbourhood. Chaos ensues as the dysfunctional family deal with the situation. Expect some spooky goings-on.
And now we come to the column My View, and this time it's written by Jonathan Young, and he entitles it Parish Now Has a Chance to Climb Out of Gutter. And there's a photograph of the Bembridge building at the centre of the row. 2 years ago, this column exposed a culture of bullying and secrecy at Bembridge Parish Council. On the receiving end were a small group of councillors who had the nerve to get themselves elected on a platform of transparency and retaining an important village asset, home to the much-loved Captain Stan's fish shop. They would have succeeded had not several other councillors, elected on precisely the same open Bembridge manifesto, abandoned their promises once in office. The controversy kept the county press's letters page going for weeks. Behind the scenes, one councillor, later to become BPC chairman, was demonstrating his approach to transparency and free speech by lobbying politically for me to finance a printed retraction and an unequivocal apology as a penance. Nothing doing there, old pal. Very little has improved since then. Huge legal costs depleted the council's coffers by its incompetent handling of the sale of 5 to 7 High Street. The annual number of full council meetings has been cut to 6, public speaking time at them halved. Important decisions delegated to committees which meet frequently but largely in private sessions, staffing increased but opening hours of the parish office cut. A year ago, the council made itself a laughingstock by returning a tin of biscuits sent as a Christmas peace offering by an octogenarian former councillor who tried to encourage civilised behaviour. You couldn't make it up. Now, though, there is at last some positive news. The Isle of Wight Council's legal department, charged with overseeing town and parish councils' adherence to their code of conduct, has found that Councillor Richard Weaver used a highly offensive word at a council meeting to describe Open Bembridge councillor Alistair Steen, himself subject to a welter of code complaints, not one of which has stood up to legal scrutiny.
Councillor Weaver claimed he had called the other man a cult, a reference to his OB membership. It was not the word the investigation found him to have used. An Isle of Wight Council Appeals Committee will now review the case and can recommend to Bembridge Parish Council what, if anything, it should do about Councillor Weaver's code breaches for failing to treat others with respect and bringing his office or the parish council into disrepute. The majority group, given their relaxed attitude to his outburst at the time, Chairman Keith Fagan ignoring it and another leading member endorsing it, might well do very little. But in any case, its powers are limited by law and don't extend to sacking him. The prerogative of political hire and fire lies with the electorate, whose next opportunity is on May the 6th, 2021, 16 long months from now. Polling stations open at 7 a.m, which will not be a moment too soon. But there is a little more good news in the meantime. The new owner of 5 to 7 High Street has reached out to parishioners in a New Year message. He is going to spend money on its upkeep, something disgracefully lacking in BPC's last years of ownership, and Captain Stan's tenancy now looks secure. The long-suffering Bembridge public could perhaps now at last look forward to less in the way of gutter politics, if only a few people would have a word with themselves.
And now, behind the news, we have head of school to relocate. The head of school at Christ the King College, Nora Ward, has announced she will be resigning at the end of the summer term. The school issued a press release this morning stating Mrs. Ward was relocating to the mainland for personal reasons. It said, during Mrs. Ward's time as head of school, there has been significant improvement in standards. This was recognised in the school's interim inspection. This was one of the major milestones in the school's journey, a tremendous achievement. This year, Christ the King achieved some of the best exam results on the island. And when Mrs. Ward joined Christ the King, the school was in a very different place. It has been Mrs. Ward's incredible hard work, tenacious dedication, empathy and determination that has transformed the school academically and pastorally. Mrs. Ward said, I'm immensely proud of my fantastic students. They are an absolute credit to the college. There are so many student successes and highlights to mention from my time here. Overall, I feel privileged and blessed to have had the opportunity to be head of school at Christ the King College. For personal reasons, I must relocate to the mainland, making my leadership of the college unsustainable. Chair of Governors Liz Burden said, I'm sure the whole school community will join me in thanking Nora Ward for her dedication and constant hard work. Under her leadership, the college has improved in many ways. All this has been achieved while maintaining our distinctive Christian ethos. Matthew Quinn will remain as executive head teacher. He said, I have enjoyed working with Nora immensely. She will be a tough act to follow. She has been instrumental in transforming the college. We wish her every success for the future. Both I and the governing body will now turn our time to the recruitment of a successor. The recruitment process of such a high-caliber individual may take an extended period, and we will communicate our progress throughout. Be assured, Christ the King College is in a good place. With the strength of its senior leadership team, teaching and support staff, and a thriving, supportive school community, we are confident the college will continue to go from strength to strength.
Some sport news. Port hit 7 in rout. Wessex Division 1, Newport 7, New Milton 1. A free-scoring Newport outfit made short work of a visiting New Milton town side on the weekend as they continued their rise up the table. The Division 1 team have been in fine fettle of late, taking 3 scalps on the bounce and notching 10 goals in their last 2 games. Manager Andy Sampson stuck to the same starting 11 that produced such a fine performance the week before, and his faith was quickly rewarded on the 4-minute mark, when Ryan Hughes went on a twisting run and fed Jordan Brown to finish from an acute angle.
And a funding boost for beach football. More island youngsters will be able to take part in beach football following a second £3,500 donation from the Isle of Wight Foundation. The grant will enable Isle of Wight Beach Soccer to buy 2 new sets of mobile goals and run more activities for young people. It is the second grant awarded to the not-for-profit organisation by the Isle of Wight Foundation, comprising the companies behind Islands Roads, following a previous donation 2 years ago. With the 2 new sets of goals, we can now accommodate twice as many teams and pay particular attention to encouraging girls to participate in our events. With these additional goals and our beautiful island beaches, we can continue to grow and make the Isle of Wight the beach soccer capital of England.
Isle of Wight athletes bring home the gold. The Isle of Wight has 3 new county champions for cross-country athletics in Campbell Laird, Henry McLucky and Charlie Metcalf. More than 800 runners took to the fields and woodlands surrounding Fairthorn Manor near Botley, and 5 clubs were represented by island runners. Among those fielding runners were the Isle of Wight Athletics Club, Ryde Harriers, Isle of Wight Triathlon Club, Southampton Athletics Club and Kingston and Poley Harriers. The youngest age group started first, with Scott Fosser out-sprinting 2 rival under-11 boys to claim a silver medal and also a team gold with his Southampton club.
And then we come on to Yarmouth and Calbourne victory of Island League football. So, Island League football team Yarmouth and Calbourne have finally broken their duck after more than 3 years without a win. The Division 2 strugglers had been without a win for as long as first team manager Chris Chatwin can remember, or 3 years and 5 days to be precise. It's long overdue, to say the least, said Chris. We've not been the best performing club, maybe in the world, but we've had a resurgence in the last few weeks, and it really is an incredible moment for the team. We all piled into the pub after the game. The owners of the Sun Inn, Dave and Kate, last year promised us all a pint if we won a game. And we have a lovely photo here of the Yarmouth and Calbourne team celebrating their victory at the Sun with pub landlord and club president David Whittaker. A lot of happy faces there. And now we come on to a little story called Cat Burglar Steals Toys and Knickers. For Jennifer and Peter Whittington, the once amusing habits of their cat Gizzy and his 5-digit discounts have started to become a problem. Gizzy can't resist stealing any item that catches his eye, and as his crime spree continues, Jennifer said she was struggling to cope with the sheer quantity of goods burgled by her beloved pet, ranging from tea towels and teddy bears to silk scarves and knickers. It's not catnap that sent Gizzy spiralling into the world of petty crime, only a love for his Newport owners, a love so strong he believes he must shower them with gifts. He drops them on the floor by the door and makes a noise to let us know he's brought us a present, said Jennifer. We've moved house from Laundry Lane to Lovely Street, and I thought by moving home he'd finally stop. But he hasn't. He's got worse. The county press originally reported on Gizzy's thieving ways back in 2018, after Jennifer set up a Facebook page to reunite people with their stolen goods. Gizzy's brother, Thomas, brings the family more traditional feline offerings such as mice and birds, but Gizzy has a predilection for the more homely presents. He's brought in silk scarves, hats, knickers, tights, purses, knitwear, a full makeup kit. I don't know how he does it, says Jennifer. How on earth did he manage to carry a makeup case? He took a pincushion from someone's house, and then, an hour later, he came in with the cotton. Gizzy was even spotted on CCTV at Island Stoves after triggering the lights in the building. His haul that night included a pair of oven gloves and some flip-flops. Jennifer said, "The struggle is getting these things back to people. It started as a joke, but now it's getting out of hand. What can you do? The items he's taking are getting more and more valuable." Jennifer has set up a new Gizzy's Pages Back Facebook page in an attempt to return the ill-gotten gains to their rightful owners. The cat leaves no calling card, short of a fur boil, to distinguish himself from the everyday criminal.
Travel by tuk-tuk. How about this for a novel way to get around? Inspired by a trip to Italy, Scout Gregory and his graphic designer wife Kaylee have launched the Isle of Wight Tuk-Tuk Company, with the mini vehicles available for tours, taxis, weddings and events. The Chale couple run tours in the West Wight and have teamed up with the cow company at Tapnell Farm, offering couples a date night taxi service. Scout, 26, said, "We noticed they were everywhere in Italy and thought it would be a fantastic idea to offer this service on the island." The couple have recently moved to the island from the Cotswolds. Scout grew up in Newtown and said he couldn't wait to return to his roots. "We loved coming on holiday here and jumped at the opportunity to move," he said. "In the long term, we hope to expand with a fleet of tuk-tuks in various parts of the island, giving local youngsters employment. We have had an overwhelming response to the business. People see it as a unique novelty factor when they see me driving around. Hopefully it will bring more tourists over to try us out."
And now, sadly, village post office to close this month. Wellow Post Office will close at the end of the month following the resignation of the postmaster. Post Office Limited said the closure would be temporary until a replacement could be found or alternative provision such as opening a branch in a shop arranged. The Post Office and the Shell Fleet Outreach Service will close on January the 30th. In a letter to customers, Change Manager Graham Brander said, "We are investigating the options available which will enable us to reinstate a post office service to the local community. It is important any future service is sustainable for the person operating the service and for Post Office Limited. Future provision will reflect customer numbers and usage, and we may take the opportunity to establish an alternative type of service. This may be a local style branch which runs alongside an established retail shop in newly refurbished premises and creates a more modern and convenient experience for customers. We have a responsibility to make sure every service makes the best possible use of resources while ensuring customers can still access our products and services. I can assure you we will continue to work to find a solution that will provide a post office service to the Wellow community. We would like to apologise for the inconvenience and the temporary closure may cause." Mr. Bob Seeley said it was important to retain services in rural communities and pledged to seek a meeting with Post Office Limited.
Horse stuck in mud. A horse was rescued after becoming stuck in the mud in God's Hill. Fire crews were called to a field at Sheepwash Lane on Sunday morning to rescue the 29-year-old animal. It was left in the care of its owner and a vet. And at Ventnor, a dog has been saved. Ventnor and Bembridge Coast Guard rescue teams saved a dog that went over a Ventnor cliff. The dog, thought to be a Labrador, had wriggled through a hole in a fence between Steep Hill Cove and Orchard Bay. The incident happened on Saturday afternoon.
And now plans to scrap BT call boxes. A plea to save our village phone boxes has been issued following the news dozens are set to be scrapped. Following a consultation on plans to remove 16 Isle of Wight phone boxes, BT has confirmed 11 will be taken away. 3 have been saved following public opposition, and 2 could be adopted by community groups. In 1 year, 781 calls were made from the 16 phone boxes. 2 of them, in Fishbourne Lane and Allen Bay, were not used at all. BT has an obligation to provide a reasonable number of working phone boxes, but said 6 out of 10 were losing money. A further consultation has been launched to remove another 26 boxes, including 2 in Knighton that were used 33 times in the past year. Resident Neil Hollis said mobile reception was unreliable and urged people to save them. A BT spokesperson said most people now have a mobile phone and calls made from our public telephones have fallen by around 90% in the past decade.
Drunk woman yelled at students. A woman drunkenly shouted abuse at foreign exchange students aged around 11 and 12 years old. Louise Spence, 29, of Regent Street, Shanklin, admitted 2 counts of common assault and 1 count of drunken disorderly behaviour when she appeared at the Isle of Wight Magistrates' Court. The court heard she started shouting at the children as they boarded a bus at Ryde bus station. Vivian Ducey, prosecuting, said a group of exchange students aged around 11 to 12 were threatened by this woman as they were getting onto a bus. The adults looking after the children tried to guide her away, but she squared up to one gentleman and then began to make threats. It was evident she was in no state to fight anyone at the time, given she was reportedly stumbling. The court heard Spence was later identified to police and arrested. Oscar Vincent, defending, said, "To be clear, these are non-contact assaults. There was no kind of injury to anyone present." At the time of the offence, she was in a long period of a very low mood. Spence was given a 9-month conditional discharge. She was also ordered to pay court costs of £50 and a surcharge of £90.
And now concerns for the Island Railway line. Concerns have been raised about the future of the South Western Railway franchise, which includes Island Line, following losses of £137 million and strikes by workers. The RMT union has called for the service to be nationalised. MP Bob Seeley said he was seeking clarity on the future of the franchise and has asked the government to make a statement. The train operator runs services from London Waterloo, Britain's busiest station, to Surrey, Hampshire, Berkshire and the South West, as well as operating Island Line. Mr Seeley said he was keen to ensure any potential changes to the management of Island Line would not have an impact on passengers, and the £26 million investment in the Isle of Wight Railway would be delivered as planned. He said, "I have put down a written question asking the Secretary of State for Transport to make a statement on the future of the South Western Railway and the forthcoming investment in Island Line. I will be seeking confirmation the government would take any necessary action to ensure scheduled services are unaffected. With regard to Island Line, the £26 million secured in September was signed off by the Department of Transport, as it is essentially government investment, and therefore I have no reason to believe it will not go ahead as planned. As we have seen over recent weeks, the current infrastructure on Island Line has more than reached the end of its natural life. It is essential that the investment is in refurbished rolling stock, the new passing loop and improved track proceeds on the agreed timescales."
Cabinet job for former detective. Former Scotland Yard detective Gary Peace has returned to the Isle of Wight Council Cabinet. Councillor Peace, who represents Ventnor West, has been given the Community Safety and Public Protection portfolio, a post he held previously after Councillor Tig Outlaw stepped down in November. The Community Safety portfolio now incorporates digital transformation to reflect the changing needs of the island. The former police officer now owns a cyber security business and is Vice Chair of Governors at the Island Free School. Councillor Peace said, "Digital is an area in which I have a great deal of expert knowledge, specifically in relation to cyber and information security and digital forensics."
And very briefly, the Premier Inn delayed. The opening date of the Premier Inn in Sandown Esplanade has been delayed. Project manager Jeff Cook said despite recent challenging weather conditions, the frame of the building has been completed, the work had started to weatherproof structure and fit it out internally. It is now due to open this summer rather than spring.
Thank you for listening. Goodbye, Alison.
And Megan.
This is Terry Mitchell with an important announcement for all readers of the Talking News. With the appointment of a new editor of the County Press nearly a year ago, there have been a number of changes to the newspaper, which we have had to accommodate. We have had some weeks of stability, and the paper content seems now to have become settled. We, the Talking News team members, are very anxious to know which sections of the paper you read and enjoy. Next week, we shall include with your memory sticks a brief questionnaire with 8 questions for you to answer. In addition, there is a space for you to indicate any section of the newspaper which you would like us to cover or to cover more fully. It will be a great help to us if as many of you as possible participate in this survey so that we all know what you think. To make it as easy as possible to respond, you can either write your answers on the questionnaire form and return it in the wallet with your memory stick, or telephone your responses to the office where a note will be made of what you say and will be passed on to us. I look forward to your responses and will give you feedback later on.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. We're often asked on this programme, especially by people who've only recently lost their sight, where can I get practical help, or maybe just someone to talk to about all the new problems that I'm facing? There's a temptation always just to mention the larger, relatively well-known organisations, RNIB, Guide Dogs, maybe Blind Veterans UK. But what many people may not know is that help could be available much closer to home. There are almost 180 local organisations for visually impaired people in the UK. They vary enormously in size and resources, but tonight we want to take a longer look at what they offer, how they're funded and how secure they are in this uncertain financial climate. Someone who did manage to find that help just round the corner is Margaret from Gateshead.
I just sat at home, I vegetated, I thought my life was over. I was never going to be able to do all the things I used to do. So I phoned up, I thought, oh God, there's no way this organisation can help me. I used to do a lot of knitting, baking. If I can just get back to my knitting and sewing and things like that, oh God, I've been given the lottery.
We'll hear more of Margaret's story a little later in the programme. Many of these organisations may be quite small, but put them all together and they have a significant collective spend. The UK's local sight loss charities spend £135 million a year. That's over £20 million more than the RNIB. Around 2/3 of them belong to an umbrella organisation called Visionary. Its chief executive is Fiona Sanford, and Fiona joins us from our Glasgow studio. Fiona, all these organisations that you try and draw together, is there a blueprint for the way they should be run? I mean, how autonomous are they?
There's not really a blueprint, because the good thing about the local societies throughout the UK is that they are all independently run, they're all different, they adapt and evolve to fit the community which they serve. So they're different in size, they offer different services.
So, I mean, what is your role? What are the kind of things that they look to you to do?
What they look to Visionary to do is provide a collective voice. We work with them all to help them with governance, with recruitment, with bids, with tenders, with generating income. All of these organisations have a wide range of income streams. Many are very dependent on the general public, on donations. Lots of them have grants and trust income. They deliver contracts on behalf of the local authority. Some also deal with health. But yes, that's becoming increasingly challenging. It always has been difficult to generate income as a charity. But as public services decrease, then demands on charitable services increase.
Well, stay there, Fiona. We're going to hear more about those challenges, and we will come back to you. We've brought together two people who run local charities and two who use their services. Jenny Gage is the Chief Executive of Sight Concern in Worcestershire.
We appreciate that when people lose their sight, there's an awful lot of information that they need and they won't know what's available out there. So we start with simple information and advice-based services. We run what's called a low vision clinic, so looking at remaining sight and prescribing magnifiers. We run some courses called Living with Sight Loss. We then run sight loss support groups. We've got 6 sight loss advisors who work across the county and will help people with all sorts of different challenges, very personalised service. What are you struggling with? How can we put you in touch with people or services, equipment that can help you?
And are these your staff? Are these people who the organisation actually employs?
So we've got a team of 18 members of staff, but we've actually got currently about 216 volunteers. We run some befriending services, so we match people with a sighted person who can help them to get out and do some of the things that they might not be able to do alone. We also run some social activity groups, all purely by volunteers.
Now, you lost local authority funding 5 years ago, I think. What effect did that have on what you could do?
Obviously, huge loss of funding, quite frightening for the organisation, working out what we could afford to do and go forward.
I mean, how much did you lose?
Over 120,000 per year.
That's a whopping gap, isn't it?
A huge gap. So we actually were able to expand our service, but all of it was down to lottery funding. So we've had 3 years of lottery funding. We've got another 3 years that reduces year on year. And at the end of those 3 years, we're back to square one.
Let me bring in Shirley Sheridan, who's alongside you, who is a user of the services. I mean, first of all, just tell us a bit about yourself and how did you lose your sight? 'Cause it was quite sudden, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. I lost my sight due to diabetes retinopathy. I was standing in front of the bathroom mirror, combing my hair, when suddenly everything went blurred in both eyes at the same time. Of course, I got an emergency appointment with my GP and she immediately referred me to the local eye hospital. And it was about 4 months later that the consultant registered me as blind.
So what did Finding Sight Concern Worcester, what did that do for you?
Well, I received a phone call from them and her name was Elizabeth, inviting me to attend the Which Way Now course. To begin with, I declined because I couldn't see the point. How could anybody make a difference to my life unless they gave me back my sight? And it was only when Elizabeth informed me that she was registered blind that I actually started listening to her.
And what is the Which Way Now course?
It's a rehabilitation course where they give you advice and inform you of aids and equipment. Also, of course, they got you in touch with other visually impaired people, which is a big help.
I mean, is that the key thing? It seems that you've mentioned it a couple of times. Is that the main thing, finding other people in the same boat?
Well, of course, you meet up with other visually impaired people. You realise you're not alone with your fears and anxieties. There's a young lady called Lucy who did a skydive. 2 years later, I too did a skydive. And that was the start of me living and all my challenges that I've done since then, such as zip wire, wing walk, whitewater rafting.
Let me bring in Newcastle. Sarah French runs site service in Gateshead there. First of all, as with Jenny, what services do you offer?
So we offer quite similar services to those in Worcester. I suppose what's significantly different is that we hold the local authority contracts for both South Tyneside and Gateshead. So that means that we help register people with sight impairment or severely sight impaired or blind, and then we help work with them to pull together a personal support plan.
But you have lost a lot of funding. This is grant funding. Can you explain what that is and what it meant you lost?
So back in around 2015-16, we had grant funding from over 20 different sources. So trust funds, some were social investment, some was business grants. We did and continue to have a lottery grant, and that, similar to Worcester, I think has probably been a very consistent and stable source of income for us. But most grants are quite short term. Unfortunately, we were in a position that a lot of those grants funds all ended at the same time.
And how much did you lose?
Just under 200,000.
Which I think meant that you had to make some pretty brutal cuts to your staffing.
Yes. So the organisation almost halved. The whole service was picked up and reviewed. A lot of our activity had to stop because it was no longer funded. As a result of that, I think site service works much more efficiently.
I'm still trying to come to terms with the fact that you lost a lot of money, but you've also said you think you offer services to more people. I'm trying to figure out how that can be done.
I think more different people. Where historically the grant funding has supported groups to do various activities, which, as I said, are absolutely valuable. Those groups, many of them still exist, but they're run by the people who attend the groups. We still offer support, but we don't organise and manage those groups. They're self-led.
Is this visually impaired people themselves who are taking more control of them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me bring in Margaret, who's with you in Newcastle. Margaret, tell us your story and how you lost your sight.
What happened to me was I had a head trauma, and it caused me to lose most of my sight and also my hearing. It was a big, big blow to me, as I was a professional person working and one thing and another. I ended up having 5 operations, and in the end the consultant had to say to me that he was very sorry, there was nothing more they could do for me. I just sat at home, I vegetated, I thought my life was over, I was never going to work again, I was never going to be able to do all the things I used to do. One day I went to my daughter, she said, I'm really sick of you vegetating, because she knew me. Leaflets had been dropped into the surgery, and my doctor had picked one up, and she actually gave me that leaflet for my husband to read. So I phoned up, I thought, oh God, this is, there's no way this organisation can help me, just like Shirley said.
So what changed your mind?
When I walked in, I met a man called Mike. Mike had a very big impact on me, because he said to me, Margaret, you can do anything you want to do. You just have to learn to do it a different way. That sentence has stayed with me all the way through this.
And can you give me examples of things that you've applied that to?
Oh gosh, yes. I used to do a lot of knitting, baking. Mike introduced me to talking scales. I went, wow, talking scales. Right, I can do my baking. It went on from there. I was so happy. I went home and I baked a cake and I took it into them the next day, and it was very nice. So they obviously worked.
Is this ringing bells, Shirley, with you?
Yes, very much so. Although I commented that I've done a skydive and all those challenges, I'll never forget the first time I made my own hot drink using a liquid level indicator. Those small things, they really, really matter right at the beginning when you've just lost your sight, because that is the first steps towards independence. You're not feeling a failure anymore.
I totally agree with Shirley there, because if it hadn't been for sight services, I wouldn't have had all these appliances. I've got this special vegetable knife. I can make me, peel my own vegetables without cutting myself. Those are small steps. But when you first achieve them, they're giant steps. And then you take another step and you learn something else. I certainly couldn't jump out of an aeroplane. I really mean that. I couldn't. But if I can just get back to my knitting and sewing and things like that, oh God, I've been given the lottery. It's amazing.
I just want to bring Jenny back because I'm wondering if there's a frustration here in the sense that you've made the comment that people just often don't know about the local organisations, and we've heard both Shirley and Margaret say how reluctant they were to come to you anyway, even when they did know.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time it is that lack of awareness of what a local organisation can do for you. And like Shirley said, if someone can't give them their sight back, then what on earth can we do for people? And I think that's why it's really important that we help people with sight loss meet other people with sight loss, because sometimes it's better to speak to somebody and not even really talk about the service, but talk about the experiences they've had.
And Sarah, you're in the same boat in a way. I'm just wondering how you do raise awareness. I don't imagine you've got a huge marketing budget.
No, we don't have a huge marketing budget, and I do think that's one of the key issues, and certainly a conversation that I'm having locally, to raise awareness beyond people who are experiencing sight loss. I think it's so important for employers and businesses and hospitality industries and leisure services to understand how their services can change for people with visual impairment.
Can I just ask you both, Jenny and Sarah, how concerned you are, though, about the financial future?
If we don't exist, then the types of services that we provide won't be available for people. So we do have huge concerns, but almost one of the positives that's come from us facing these funding challenges is where we used to provide a lot of the services for people. Very much our model going forwards is how we can help people with sight loss to be active members of their communities.
And with this idea of visually impaired people to some extent running their own organisations and their own services, Shirley and Margaret, any suggestions that you'd make that could make your voluntary organisations better?
Well, I think, like I say, you can do anything you want to do, and you can pass this on to partial sighted people and blind people.
But it's really important that people are aware of their local services, because it really does make a difference, and it's really important they are in touch with those services as soon as they need them.
That's users Shirley and Margaret with Chief Execs Jenny and Sarah. But as you'll have gathered, these organisations can sometimes operate on a knife edge. We covered a case in point almost 2 years ago when Northamptonshire County Council was notoriously facing a £70 million funding shortfall. Amongst sweeping cuts it was making was the funding for Northamptonshire's Association for the Blind. This was a £75,000 contract to provide rehabilitation services. Well, we spoke to the then Chief Executive of the association, Alex Lohman, and he's back with us now. Alex, at the time when we talked to you, you really didn't know how you were really going to survive this. Tell us what's happened over the last couple of years.
Well, I'm glad to say that with the help of fellow local societies, colleagues in Visionary and the national organisations such as the RNIB, we managed to convince the County Council of the value of services for visually impaired people, and they rescinded the cut. They've maintained that level of funding since.
But now you've had 6 years of lottery funding as well. But again, as we've heard, that doesn't last forever. How secure do you think you are now as you look to the future? Because, you know, if local authorities can cut in 1 year, they can do it again, can't they?
They certainly can. We continue to make the case to them and other funders about the value of the work we do. We recently commissioned a survey, for example, a report by the University of Northampton looking at the social value and impact of our work, and that demonstrated for every £1 that funders give us, we produce in excess of £4 of positive social impact. Regarding security of funding, yes, we've had 6 years of lottery funding. That's just come to an end, so we're in the process of reaching out to the lottery and other prospective funders to see how we can maintain services moving forward.
Alex Lohman, thanks very much for joining us again. Let me just finally bring back Fiona Sanford from Visionary. Now, as Alex said, you helped support Northamptonshire 2 years ago. These organisations walk a funding tightrope. Is this a sustainable model in the years to come, do you think?
It's a funding tightrope, as you've described it. Is it sustainable? Well, do you know, a lot of these organisations have been around since the 1850s, so we're obviously doing something right. Nobody's pretending these aren't challenging times, but I think what we have is a really good set of organisations who can rise to that challenge.
One of the things we have heard about is the suggestion that visually impaired people themselves are becoming more involved in running their organisations. Indeed, the move over recent years has been very much that they should be running those organisations. Is that something that's happening because they actually believe in the principle that people should be running them?
Well, I would hope it was because they believed in the principle. At a recent visionary conference, that was very much the focus of what we were aiming to get across, was that people with lived experience sitting along people with learned experience is most definitely the way ahead for local organisations.
Fiona Sanford, thank you very much indeed. And that is it for today, but we would like you to tell us your experiences, good and bad, of charities at the local level. You can leave us messages and your comments on 0161 836 1338. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk, or you can go to our website, that's bbc.co.uk/in touch, where you can download tonight's and many other previous editions of the programme. That's it from me, Peter Wight, producer Mike Young and the team. Goodbye.
This is the scaffolding news for Friday the 17th of January 2020. Ryde Seaview, Bembridge. Scaffolding, 79 Park Road, Player Street, Ryde. Coburg's Union Street, Ryde, the 1811-19. 3136 Marymead Close, Ryde. 9 Winton Street, Ryde. And Hoardings, Car Park, Brooks Close, Bembridge.
Cows, East Cows and Gurnard. Scaffolding, 42 Regency House, High Street, Cows. Cameos, 16 Bath Road, Cows. 5 to 7 York Avenue, East, Cows. 134 St Mary's Road, Cows. 24 Castle Street, East, Cows. And Skips, 21 York Street, Cows.
Newport, scaffolding, 146 High Street, Newport. Phones for You, High Street, Newport. Cherry Picker, New Close House, Watergate Road, Newport. Opposite 33, rear of the school, Forest Road, Newport. Hoarding, upstream, Wellington Road, Newport.
Sandown, scaffolding and crane and hoarding. Scaffolding at Methodist Church, York Road, Sandown. Hoarding at Premier Inn, 1 to 9 Esplanade, Sandown. Crane at Premier Inn, 1 to 9 Esplanade, Sandown. And Skips, the Sheelings, Ferncliff Road, Sandown. And Sandown Pier, Esplanade.
Ventnor and Knighton, scaffolding, corner of Madeira Road, Ventnor. Point Cottage, Church Street, Knighton. Old Town Hall, 1 to 12 Albert Street, Ventnor. 1 Blendworth Terrace, Ventnor. 27 West Street, Ventnor. Highlands, Bellevue Road, Ventnor. Skips, pending, 16 South Street, Ventnor.
Yarmouth and Freshwater, scaffolding, Tanners, 10 High Street, Yarmouth. Skips, Tanners, 10 High Street, Yarmouth. Runnymede, Queen's Road, Freshwater. Guyer's Cottage, Blackridge, Freshwater.